because of this stress receptors, they can inhibit by whenever the lungs are overinflated, means lungs are overly filled with air, means these receptors are activated, so that lungs should deflate, and these are called Hailing-Brewer reflex. So Herring-Brewer reflex. Herring-Brewer reflex means whenever the lungs is more inflated with a lot of air, then it should get immediately deflated by this mechanisms. And if over deflated, the nerves overfire and make them back to the normal. So even if it is over inflated or either over deflated, both are problems, so again it should come back to the normal. So that is the main goal. So vagus is connected with smooth muscles of bronchi and acts as a stress receptors. So vagus is also present in our bronchi, trachea, so all there in the smooth muscle also it is present. So in between the mucous cells there are another receptors sensitive to the histamine. Histamine, it's a powerful vasodilator, and they carry info through the vagus, that is about like 90%, and sensory only take 10% of motor in bronchioles, and they are irritant. There are also irritation receptors that produce bronchoreception. Example: breathing, irritating fumes, vagus send info to the central nervous system, and bronchioles constrict. So whenever any irritant molecules are coming, then these receptors are there in the trachea lining, bronchioles, bronchi lining. So whenever this irritating substance comes, especially they're sensitive to histamine. So when this kind of particles enter, immediately constrict. You can understand whenever the bronchioles constrict, it may lead to like asthma like condition where there may be dyspnea, shortness of breath, all those conditions. So juxtacapillary receptors in the capillary of alveoli, they mainly produce a shallow breathing when irritated by pulmonary edema. So actually, in lung capillary cells, for example, this is lung capillary. So here also we have some endothelial cells. So these endothelial cells are having some receptors which are near to this endothelial cells. They produce shallow breathing when irritated. So whenever there is pulmonary edema, they initiate the shallow breathing. Yes, dyspnea is an unpleasant breathing sensation created by the pulmonary edema. So, how can we remember this? Like JILS, you can remember J for pulmonary capillaries, I for bronchi, L for bronchial smooth muscle. And next, coming to proprioception, the sensory information from the locomotor system take info and go up on the waves to stimulate the reticular system of inspiratory center. So, example, when a cold water, if you bath in cold water in cold weather, you can understand the situation. Here, the veins dilate, or there is maybe vasodilation, or they may also alter. So this is proprioception. So by this we complete our chemical regulation, chemical regulation of respiration. Now we'll see directly into our textbook some important points. So we need to know what is this acclimatization, the physiological adaptation of human body to high altitudes. So whenever we go to high altitudes, actually our body itself tries to gets adapted, where the concentration of atmospheric oxygen is much lower. As oxygen is much lower there, climbers, they use a technique like they'll not suddenly go up, slowly for few days, like that they'll be going. So because of this, the body also tries to adapt according to that and try to increase more oxygen production. Next, chemosensitive area, which is mainly located in medulla and also referred to as the central chemoreceptors. So it is highly sensitive to, we already studied this, right, to carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions, and excite the other respiratory centers as well. Next, glomerulus cells. I think you can say now these are the peripheral receptors. Carotid body. Carotid body have type 1 and type 2 cells. Type 1 cells mainly have this glomerulus cells, right? So these are the glandular-like cells which are present in aortic and carotid bodies. It is suggested that these cells might play a role in a peripheral chemoreceptor, right? Next, coming to peripheral chemoreceptor, the carotid and aortic bodies, of course, together referred as peripheral chemoreceptor. So these are like some of the key points. Here we need to check out this diagram, that is a summary of chemical stimuli which mainly regulate the ventilation of extracellular fluid. So you can see whenever there is increase in arterial carbon dioxide, even of course if arterial carbon dioxide increase, then even the carbon dioxide and extracellular fluid of a brain increases. This in turn leads to increase in hydrogen ions. So this leads to chemosensitive area to get fired. So because of this, the inspiratory centers get fired, motor neurons to diaphragm and external intercostals undergo firing. So finally, this leads to the contraction of diaphragm and external intercostal muscle. You can understand when diaphragm contracts and external intercostal muscles activate, especially inspiration takes place and increase in the ventilation further. So even whenever oxygen is decreased or carbon dioxide is increased and increase in hydrogen ion, there is firing in carotid and aortic. So by this you can differentiate, like this is central chemoreceptors, This is our peripheral chemoreceptors. Peripheral chemoreceptors are sensitive to oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, whereas our central chemoreceptors are mainly concerned with arterial carbon dioxide. So this leads to firing in carotid aortic chemoreceptors. The same process continues. Finally, the aim is to increase the ventilation. So in this diagram mainly we can see the actual site where a chemosensitive area is present. So this is where a chemosensitive area is present, and here you can see this is the inspiratory area which is present towards the ventral side of our medulla, and here is the reaction which is going on. As we discussed, carbon dioxide crossing the blood-brain barrier, reacting with water to form carbonic acid. Later this carbonic acid dissociate into bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. Even this hydrogen ions sense, you know they activate our receptors, especially central receptors. So here we have a graph. So actually mainly here you can see on x-axis the partial pressure of carbon dioxide which is present in the blood. So you can see these are the values, like they are showing like increasing. As the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is increasing, you can see the pH is decreasing, because pH value is normal 7.2 to 7.4, but it is, you can see, can decreasing, means it is becoming 6.9. Whereas the carbon dioxide level in the blood is increasing. But let us see alveolar ventilation. You can see whenever the carbon dioxide, there is rise in carbon dioxide concentration in arteries. Even you can see the normal value is like 40, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, but it is increasing above the 40, like it is coming to nearly 11. So by this we can say that these are like directly proportional. So whenever the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood increases, even the alveolar ventilation increases. The by our either chemoreceptor, by central chemoreceptors or peripheral chemoreceptors. Mainly here the central chemoreceptors work because they are more sensitive to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood. So here especially now we are discuss about central chemoreceptors. So this diagram mainly represents our peripheral chemoreceptor, that is nothing but our carotid body and aortic body. So here we can check out the exact location where they are present. So this is a bifurcation of our carotid artery. So in that bifurcation place you have, this is the carotid body, whereas aortic body is present like at the arch of the aorta, where it is dividing into internal and external carotids. So you can see this is the vagus nerve which is passing in between the two carotids, and this is the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is also coming from this carotid body. As we know, glossopharyngeal and vagus both give the supply to the brain. They give information from the carotid body to the brain, and where they go finally into the medulla. And next you can see this is the effect of arterial partial pressure of oxygen from the carotid body. Here oxygen plays important role in regulation of our peripheral chemoreceptors. So carotid body nerve impulses per second. So you can see as the arterial pressure is dropping, it's like 500 before, but as it is dropping to 100, you can see suddenly there is very much rise in our carotid nerve impulse towards uh, center peripherals towards the brain, because whenever there is drop, especially below 60, we know it gets activated and finally increase the ventilation. So here we got differences between central and peripheral chemoreceptors. So location, chemoreceptors area is in medulla, peripheral is in carotid aortic bodies. Stimuli, increase in carbon dioxide stimulates this, right? And indirectly by increase hydrogen ions in brain. And decrease in oxygen arterial concentration stimulate receptors. Even carbon dioxide increase and increase in hydrogen ion concentration also stimulate them. And rapidity in response, slower response as compared to peripheral. Peripheral are rapid, this is important, 5 times rapid as central stimulation. This is a point which we got here important. So this is all about our inside the carotid body, the mechanism which we already discussed. Whenever this is oxygen sensitive chamber, right? So whenever oxygen is present, this potassium channel is open, but whenever the oxygen is absent, this potassium channel closed. Because of this, potassium gets accumulated and leads to threshold depolarization, which in turn leads to calcium channel opening. So because of this, calcium start coming into the cell, increase in calcium. So because of increase in calcium, dopaminergic vesicles are present. So this lead to in turn release of acetylcholine. So this acetylcholine triggers efferent fibers to which are growing to the central nervous system. This in turn lead to increase in the ventilation. So here we got another graph. So actually this graph shows on x-axis arterial partial pressure of carbon dioxide, whereas on y-axis you can see alveolar ventilation. So actually what this determines is, you can see whenever this partial pressure of carbon dioxide, here you can see it is decreasing in order. like 160 to 140. Yeah, it's decreasing. So whenever arterial partial pressure of carbon dioxide is decreasing, you can see the alveolar ventilation is trying to increase from 1 to 40. This green color showing the standard value, it's 40 millimeters of mercury. So here it's trying to move towards a 40. Actually in this graph they measured wrong. This is PCO2 9, this is PO2, because you can see the PO2 decreases, increasing six-fold ventilation, because if PCO2 increases means ventilation should increase, but here PO2 is decreasing. As PO2 is decreasing, alveolar ventilation is increasing, so this is wrong here. Now here we need to see actually acclimatization. So actually mountain climbers have found that when they ascend a mountain slowly over a period of days rather than a period of hours, so slowly if they are climbing, rather than directly going very fast, they breathe much more deeply and therefore can withstand lower atmospheric oxygen concentration that when they ascend rapidly. So this is called acclimatization. Acclimatization is nothing but the adaptation according to that mountain area, because we normally live in this actual altitude. So if you go to that higher altitude, suddenly our body may not adapt to it. By slowly, if you go by height and height on height, then your body just accommodates it and tries to increase the oxygen levels so that it can help you in supplying the additional oxygen which is especially required in that kind of areas. So next we are going to see this graph here. Here we have on x-axis our alveolar carbon dioxide, and on y-axis you can see we have alveolar ventilation. So actually this is a three sets of graph. You can see this red set of graph and this green set of graphs. What they represent: the red color represent the pH of 7.4 and the green color represents the pH of 7.3. So you can see at the pH of 7.4 the values are like 40, 50, 60 in comparison to partial pressure of oxygen. So here the partial pressure of oxygen and alveolar carbon dioxide both are compared at the same time. So at higher pH you can see the values are like 40, 50, 60, 100, whereas in 7.3 you can see their values are like 40, 50, 60, 100. So here actually you can see the combined effects of both carbon dioxide and oxygen on our ventilation. So the main thing which we need to observe here is the curves are displaced towards the right at higher pH. So you can see 7.4 they are towards the right side, whereas at lower pH you can see they were towards displaced towards the left side, right? So this is the left side, green side with lower pH, 7.4 higher pH, so they were towards the left side. Sorry, this is the right side. Red one are right side, green one are left side. So this is a graph which is showing like whenever we increase exercise, increase carbon dioxide, increase hydrogen ions, and also increase oxygen consumption. So you can see on x-axis oxygen consumption, y-axis total ventilation. So as oxygen consumption is increasing, you can see in moderate exercise still here, even the ventilation, it's like a straight graph. It's a linear relationship between oxygen consumption, total ventilation. Like they are directly proportional. If oxygen consumption increases, even the total ventilation tries to increase. And here we can see, so these are the graphs which are done in exercise of a dog especially. So this lower graph is showing ventilation, alveolar ventilation, whereas upper graph is showing the arterial carbon dioxide. So you can see alveolar ventilation at the time of beginning it has just suddenly increased and it has maintained like somewhat some level and again dropped for 1 minute. Later it dropped. Whereas coming to exercise about arterial carbon dioxide first it drops, but later with the time it increases rapidly more when compared, in exercise carbon dioxide levels are very much increased, but ventilation is first increased a lot, later it has again dropped. So here actually arterial carbon dioxide is given on x-axis, y-axis alveolar ventilation. So during rest and exercise we need to compare. So you can say at the rest it's like steady state, steady rate is increasing, but exercise you can see there is no steady state, it's directly increasing. But whatever either in exercise or resting you can see the arterial carbon dioxide should maintain a normal level, especially at 40 millimeters of mercury. So even at rest it is 40, even at exercise the normal value is 40. But you can see in exercise there is rapid increase in carbon dioxide when compared during rest. And finally we have this one summary of factors which regulate ventilation during exercise. So you can see the collateral motor impulses to muscle respiratory centers, proprioceptors, mechanoreceptors, chemoreceptors, central and peripheral, brain learned response, nociceptors, cardiac and temperature receptors. So all these act on dorsal group of neurons, increase firing, inspiratory ramp signal, ventral group of neurons. So this act on somatic neurons for inspiration, somatic neurons expiration, inspiration. So finally contraction of diaphragm, external intercostal increase inspiration, whereas this one for contraction of internal intercostal abdominal muscles, in expiration internal intercostal and abdominal. Here whereas external intercostal for inspiration. So this is how inspiration expiration is done. These all are the factors which regulate them. So by this we completed our chemical regulation. Next we'll start the neural regulation. It's also very simple.